Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. This is the Ukraine War News Update, second part thereof, the 7th of November 2024. This is a military aid video, but we're going to start with the US. And the segue into that is the proposed plan for Ukraine being discussed, particularly reported on in the Wall Street Journal. So one of the proposed approaches from Trump's team is to limit the supply of arms to Ukraine until it agrees to negotiate with Russia. Kyiv will have the right to return territories, but only through diplomacy. USA can continue to support Ukraine, but not at the expense of direct involvement of the American military or financing of peacekeeping activities. So that's what's genuinely taking place. If, in terms of what the Trump team is discussing, then Ukraine's done. Like, anyone, if that's seriously what's on the cards, I mean, they're not done, but they are not going to receive US support. It's as simple as that. So you can be as pro-Trump as you like and pro-Ukraine, but you're gonna come into some cognitive dissonance there, because the writing's on the wall, at least as far as what the Wall Street Journal is reporting. That's not to say that's definitely what will take place, what will come about. And it could be that Trump, once he gets, and his team, once they get into these positions of power inside the administration, actually talk to intelligence services who then say, by the way, like, this is how important Ukraine is. And if you do that, we're screwed, or they're screwed, and geopolitically the whole region is destabilized and we're handing power to Russia. We are giving permission to aggressive states to take over territories and then force those territories to negotiate with the aggressors and to give over territory to the aggressors. I've used a simple analogy like this before, but it's absolutely apt, I think, which is, imagine I go round to my neighbour's house. Jill, old lady, lives next door. And I just camp out in her house and I say, this house is now mine. And then Jill goes, hang on, as she fights back. But the police come round and they say, okay, well, because we want peace here, we won't help you, Jill, unless you give JP maybe the bottom half of your house. You've got to live upstairs. But, you know, we want peace. So he has, like, taken over most of the bottom of the house at the moment. So if you just go upstairs, then we'll have peace. And we will support you, Jill, for as long as you accept that you've lost the bottom part of your house. Is that all right? Jill goes, hang on. Like, a couple of months ago, I had my whole house and he was bloody next door, piddling around over there. What you do? Like, he's just walked in and helped himself to the house. What do you mean, like, forcing me to have peace? But in order to have peace, I've got to give up half my house to this guy that's just walked into the house and taken control of it. How is that fair? What's that saying to anyone else out in the neighbourhood? You can just walk into people's houses, and then just because we want freaking peace, you can help yourself to whatever you take, and then we'll enforce like a frozen line of they can have whatever they've helped themselves to, as long as they don't promise to do anything else. Now, part of this agreement that the Wall Street Journal is talking about is not just about military aid and using the threat of military aid or not military aid in order to force negotiations, but it's actually worse than that. So, according to Wall Street Journal, the options before Trump uniformly recommend freezing the war are, quote, cementing Russia's seizure of roughly 20% of Ukraine and forcing Ukraine to suspend its pursuit of NATO membership for at least 20 years. What? So the first thing on Zelensky's victory plan was like NATO membership. And the first thing the Trump team are saying is like, you can't have membership for more than 20 years. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Freaking brilliant. And this is why I'm so angry. Part of why I'm so angry, that bloody dingbat has walked himself into power in the White House. That, oh, we can't have a black woman. We can't have a woman of colour. But no, I'll tell you what, we can have a convicted felon, sex abuser, insurrection motivator, someone that should be in court for X, Y, and Z, but now Jack Smith's had to take back his court cases. Someone that's been bankrupted, had affairs, blah, 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 best mates with Jeffrey Epstein. But that guy's cool. Oh, we can't have, the country's not ready for a woman president, is it? No. So we'll have this guy. It is ready for a felon, though. It's ready for a felon and sex abuser. Yeah, we'll have one of them in. Can't have a woman of colour. Ooh, no, not ready for that. And so I get really frustrated about the whole moral dimension of this guy in charge. But then it's like, but if you support Ukraine, if you support global security, what are you doing supporting this guy? The war's current front line would essentially lock in place, and both sides would agree to an 800-mile demilitarised zone guarded by European peacekeepers and no US troops or soldiers from a US-funded international body such as the United Nations. So the US says, you have to do this, and by the way, we aren't going to be anything to do with that after that. That's your problem, Europe. I'm in a good mind to just say, screw you, US, and I think that's what Europe's kind of doing, which is like, okay, if this is what you want, we'll take over from here. Can't guarantee it's going to be as successful, but we'd much rather try than have that pathetic effort. And I can tell you there's going to be an awful lot of people in the Department of Defense in the US that's going to be frustrated with this. If that's what they're going to try. And this is people like Kellogg and Waltz who are vying for national security advisor positions. It's not cool. Now, Biden, who has been slow walking aid and faffing around doing the square root and naff all for, or at least largely, possibly because they were waiting to win the election and then didn't win the election and now bugger. So the Biden administration plans to urgently send the remaining $6 billion in security support to Ukraine before Trump's inauguration, reports Politico. I hope they can just do a load of stuff in the next month and a half. Just, before January 20th, isn't it? So a couple of months, just everything. Just do as much as we can and put a load of things in place that maybe the Trump administration can't reverse. It's not cool. So Kyiv Independent reports on this, saying that the Biden administration rushing to deliver a $6 billion in remaining Ukraine aid ahead of Trump's inauguration. This is from Politico. Two administration officials told Politico that the White House plans to expedite the weapons delivery amid concerns for future Trump administration, and they would halt shipments before they reach Kyiv. My goodness, if you're worried about that. So actually, this is what's been put through Congress. We put this in place. We're going to send it there. And you think Trump would get in and say, stop that going there. Stop that. Stop. We don't want any weapons going there. Yeah, but this has passed through Congress. No, not having it. If they're genuinely worried about that, then things are looking worse for Ukraine than initially thought. Trump has repeatedly said that he would end the war within 24 hours and get the US out of Ukraine, a plan that may involve ceding Ukrainian territory and creating autonomous regions in the east, according to reporting in October. In June, two top advisors to Trump proposed a plan that would cease military aid, as mentioned, to Ukraine unless it agrees to hold peace negotiations with Russia. Reuters reported, citing the advisors, retired General Keith Kellogg and Fred Fleitz. There should be a Z on the end of there. So Fleitz is different from the Waltz guy I mentioned earlier, who is vying for a national security advisor position, I think. Politico reported that the $61 billion aid package passed by Congress in April. Only $4.3 billion remains to pull existing weapons stocks, while a further $2.1 billion in funding remains to put weapons on contract with US defense companies. Now, I would think it would be a bit of political suicide if the US administration comes in and stops orders to defense companies, because that's money in the coffers of defense companies. Despite the president's ability to deliver existing weapon stocks through presidential drawdown authority, White House officials are concerned that the delivery of the large amount of weaponry may take months to reach Ukraine, well past Trump's inauguration into office. Despite the concerns around the weapons' timely delivery, the Pentagon will remain on track to continue to provide the authorized assistance to support Ukraine, according to Pentagon spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Charlie Dietz. We expect to have further assistance in the coming weeks. Most recently, on October the 16th, Biden announced $425 million new security assistance for Ukraine, and that's the one that included 212 Striker APCs. Now moving on to aid. During his visit to Kiev, Sweden's Minister of Civil Defence Carl Oskar Bolin announced 100 million Swedish kronas, that's $9.3 million worth of civil defence aid to Ukraine. The package presented alongside Ukraine's Minister of Internal Affairs Ihor Klimenko includes 2 patrol boats, 24 passenger cars, a minibus, a truck, personal protective equipment from the Swedish Coast Guard, and 40,000 protective masks with filters. Good stuff, Sweden. Cabinet ministers of Lithuania and have made a decision to facilitate the purchase of arms for Ukraine. Amendments to the law on the control of weapons and ammunition for the acquisition of Category A weapons, accessories and ammunition are aimed at supporting EU projects for Ukraine through the Central Project Management Agency, which conducts public procurement. So they are facilitating aid getting to Ukraine. Now, there are reports, I've talked about this before, the Ukrainian ballistic missile, is it going to be ready in the middle of 2025, or is that a new private concern? There are claims about the Krim 2, which is, I think that means Thunder, is now ready for operational deployment, as this source says. Let's see how the enemy likes our reply to their Iskanders. I'll be very pleased if the Ukrainian ballistic missile, the Krim 2, is ready for use. They desperately need to be able to strike deep into Russian territory to do exactly what they've been wanting to do, taking out air bases, taking out weapons depots, etc., etc. Now, Ukrainian forces are to receive a domestic UAT teaser armoured vehicle that looks something like that. So this is another Ukrainian-produced piece of kit. So the MOD has codified and improved the use of domestic armoured vehicle UAT teaser for the defence forces. The vehicle can be used for a wide range of tasks with additional devices and equipment installed depending on the mission. Built on the chassis of an off-road vehicle from a well-known car manufacturer, a specially designed armoured capsule is installed on the chassis to protect the crew from small arms fire. The design for the armoured capsule allows for the installation of a machine gun on the turret. The vehicle's mine protection system is capable of withstanding the detonation of explosive devices under the wheels and the underside of the vehicle. The Ukrainian vehicle features excellent dynamic performance, off-road capability, and a smooth ride. With a full tank of fuel, it can cover 1,000 kilometers in a single refueling. Ukraine in general have increased its weapons production. Both private and state-owned Ukrainian companies are manufacturing various types of drones, electronic warfare systems, ammunition, armoured vehicles and other weaponry. And it's also advancing its missile program. In August, Zelensky announced the first successful use of the Palyantsia drone missile. He has also stated that Ukraine is working on developing its own ballistic weapons. For more details, continue to read RBC Ukraine, it says there. Okay, good stuff. Right. A Kyiv Independent reports that South Korea is not ruling out supplying arms to Ukraine, according to their president. Now, depending on the level of North Korean involvement, we will gradually adjust our support strategy in phases, he said. And I hope that is expedited, if they could do with it now. Now, French, I've come across this French Assemblée Nationale declaration, or this is from someone in particular. Well, Frédéric Petit. I've tabled in the Assembly, that's their parliament, a motion for a resolution aimed at lifting the restrictions of the use of long-range weapons systems delivered to Ukraine. We must help defend Ukraine itself, protect lives, and not lose this war. Good stuff there from the French, potentially. Poland plans to invest 3 billion zlotys, so about $750 million, in increasing the production of ammunition. I don't know if that has a knock-on effect for Ukraine, or if that's for Ukraine, or whatnot, but obviously the more ammunition in Europe, the better for Ukraine in general. Western countries are forced to reduce the training time for Ukrainian soldiers due to the Russian army's offensive, according to Defence One. Only 1 week is allocated for training soldiers for operations in squads, platoons and companies, and 21 days for brigade headquarters. So the pace of the war has shortened EU-based training for Ukrainian troops. That is a worry. That, I think, it represents a real shortage of personnel for the Ukrainians. That is definitely not good news. And then finally, I've talked about this with regard to the claims concerning aircraft, that actually aircraft have only got a month's average on the front line without being shot down type thing. So this is Russian blogger Kasharova. on Russia's assault units. Less than 3 weeks passed between signing a contract and the death of the average Russian assault soldier. In an attempt to maintain the pace of these offensives, 18-year-old boys are recruited at a high cost and immediately sent to a bloodbath in Ukraine. I'm going to read this. I think it's interesting. It is anecdotal, as in, it's not necessarily official, but I presume it reflects something going on along these lines. Life expectancy of an assault soldier on a front line often ranges from 2 weeks to a month, and the government's expenditure per soldier between 6 and 12 million rubles, forgive the blunt financial perspective. The effectiveness of such an assault soldier tends towards zero. There's no field as unprofitable in its approach to human resources and government funds as the military. Ouch. Just 2 years ago, an assault soldier was elite, top-notch specialists, fearless professionals. Today, in the public view, an assault soldier is an untrained soldier who perhaps can barely shoot, or a soldier who is still recovering from injuries and due to resource shortages or other reasons is sent back to a mission. Being sent into the assault is seen as a punishment, a reset, and is even presented as a humiliating position. Why? There are 3 examples of an assault soldier's survival rate. Look at the dates and you'll understand the level of preparation of these fighters. Then talks about this person turned 18, total of 17 days from contract signing to declared missing. Another one, 17 days from contract signing to declared missing, and then 12 days from contract signing to declared missing. So that you sign a contract, and that's, I presume, all your training sent to the front line and die. 17 days, and 12 days. Wow. Assuming that's correct. Assault soldiers, she continues, are the riskiest fighters in the front lines. Their life expectancy is significantly lower than artillerymen, tank crews and drone operators. However, due to the immediate deployment of untrained soldiers, many are quickly killed, referred to as 200s, or wounded 300s. Because of shortages, everyone is now being sent in as assault soldiers, including tank operators, drone operators, engineers and signalmen. According to some commanders, any man who signs a contract is a ready assault soldier, but this is not true. Even experienced assault soldiers in Wagner units underwent retraining at a training ground after leaves or injuries and rehabilitation. Conclusion: the current system is ineffective both in combat and financially. An untrained soldier with near zero effectiveness costs the government between 6 and 12 million rubles for 2 weeks to a month on the front lines. So that is pretty damning. That's a pretty damning indictment of the Russian military and these assault units. So my view is that Russia is perilously close to capitulating, and they've only been given a lifeline by North Korea. They've now been given a lifeline by fricking Trump and the US incoming administration. This is a time where the screws should be turned on Russia. This is a time when we should be giving everything to the Ukrainians that we possibly can. But instead, the US is like, yeah, no, you're right. Fed up with that now. Good luck. In fact, what we're going to do is just force you. We're going to force you to negotiate and give away some of your territory, because that's right, innit? Does my nut in. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm going to go away and have a stiff cup of tea. Ugh.